That's right. Back at it again. Full custom hot dog, and I have almost a complete week of Blu-ray reviews. I don't know if I'm going to do one on Friday. We'll see. But yeah, 4 days in a row. What a treat. What a delight. I actually don't know how I pulled it off. I'm patting myself on the back here, and hopefully I can pull this off again next week. I just kind of enjoy doing it, and it's fun, and I dig it. And anyway, here we are. We're talking about Only God Forgives on Blu-ray, because we talk about Blu-ray releases, and then sometimes I talk about movie news every once in a while. So, Only God Forgives, released 2013, directed by Nicholas Winding Refn. The same director as Drive. If you watch that episode, which is like 20 minutes long, I did a 20-minute episode about Drive. I just totally fanboyed out over it. You know, I'm into, well, if you've watched a lot of my stuff, you know I'm kind of into like aesthetics, visual flicks. It's fine. It's cool. So this will kind of be a treat because I feel like one of 5 people that really like this movie, and I understand if you don't, and don't judge me. Come on now. But anyways, let's talk about this release. Released by Anchor Bay, a company who I've frequently mentioned how back in the DVD and VHS days they were kind of ruling the roost, and then they kind of turned to pee-pee, and here we are. Sometimes they put out movies. This is a pretty decent release, though. Really, I'm really not going to complain. This kind of has pretty much everything I'd want here, for the most part. You've got a commentary with Nicholas Winding Refn, who, if you've ever heard him talk, or have ever heard him or watched him be interviewed, he's kind of full of himself in a way. He is very, I don't know, he's thinking he's making high art, and to a degree he is, but it's still kind of awkward to hear someone be very boastful and, I don't know, kind of dig into his the meanings of what he's doing, and you can kind of roll your eyes sometimes and be like, come on now, you know? But solid commentary all around. It also comes with behind the scenes, which isn't half bad. A couple interviews with Nicholas again, and then an interview with Cliff Martinez, who does the music. A phenomenal soundtrack in this film. Pretty decent release. Solid picture quality and audio, which is, I always say, you know, everything's shot in digital, so when it comes out in digital media, it's going to look great. But this movie especially, it's tons of wonderful colors, what they call quote-unquote bisexual lighting. To me, I just call it aesthetics. Beautiful film, regardless of how you feel about it. It's so well shot. I even think it's better. Pound for pound, it has better looking aesthetics or shots in it than Drive, in my opinion. And I love Drive. Granted, overall, of course, Drive is a much better film, but visually, I think this might be Refn's best work that I've seen anyway. There's a few I haven't seen. We'll talk about all of that stuff later, though. So yeah, it's a solid release. I'd give it a B+. It'd be really cool if it was packaged with the documentary based about the making of this film, which we'll talk about later. And sort of fits into what we were talking about with Shirkers a couple days ago, or a day ago. I did a little bit of poking around, as I am wont to do, and I noticed that there is a 3D version released in Germany, which my first thought was like, wow, that's got to be amazing. And then my second thought was like, well, what does this do in 3D? Unless it like really lights up or something, unless they give you lights that light up your house, or it syncs up with like a smart LED light or something to make your room glow the colors of the film, that'd be cool. That's a feature I'd want. But without that, I don't know if I'd like 3D. I may import it, but I don't have a 3D TV, so maybe I'll keep it in a time capsule. I don't know. And then I did see a steelbook, which came from, I think, somewhere in Asia, that actually looked kind of cool. That's $50. I'm not doing that. I do like this movie, so yeah, that's definitely not worth that investment, though. So, solid release. I'm giving it a B, because it's got pretty much anything I'd want, but not the A that's deserved. With the documentary, it would get a full A. So, if you haven't seen this movie, what is it about? And I'm going to read the synopsis from IMDb. Julian, a drug smuggler, that's the Goss, Ryan Gosling, a drug smuggler thriving in Bangkok's criminal underworld, sees his life get even more complicated when his mother compels him to find and kill whoever is responsible for his brother's recent death. And then what they don't tell you is that the person responsible for the death of the brother is a cop who is essentially God, or they call him an angel in the commentary, which I find interesting as well. lot of meaning with that. With that, this cop is essentially God and is his law, and he primarily just reacts to actions around him. And it feels like that script could have been such a different movie in another director's hands, as I say with some of these types of films, even something like the one I talk about the most, Mandy, of course. It'd be interesting to see this in someone else's hands because it'd probably be from the cop's perspective. But it's the story is mostly straightforward, where he's basically trying to avenge his family for his mother. Some weird Oedipus complex happening there, and he's gonna fight this cop who carries around a sword and will hurt people with his sword. And it's kind of cool. It's, like I've mentioned before, beautifully shot, beautifully well lit. A lot of this was actually done on the spot. They didn't bring in lights and set up sets or set dressing. This was all done naturally, where they went to these settings and they worked with what they had, and they really came out with something great. Not surprised to see it has a 37 on Metacritic, as it was kind of known that when this premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, people booed and walked out, and it was kind of well hated. Everybody kind of dumped on it. I didn't care to see it as much as I like and love Drive, and I really liked Bronson, and I think NWF. That's what we're referring to Nicholas Winding Refn for now on, as NWF, or NWR, I should say. As much as I really like his stuff, I don't jump to his movies for some reason. He's kind of one of those directors. And eventually, I think I picked this up for maybe $8 or $6, just because I wanted to see it, even though I think at the time I only heard bad things, and put it on, and I fell asleep. And then I watched it again, and I think I fell asleep the second time. Both times I caught the ending, sort of. But then when I don't know, the first time I only fell asleep for like half hour or something, because I remember catching like most of like the latter half of the middle to the end, and I thought the ending was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen. And then when I finally was able to watch it, the full thing, I was really stunned by the film. I know this sounds like a terrible endorsement. That's why I understand why people don't like this. People don't like this movie because it's super slow, and it's plotting, and it's the Cliff Martinez, the guy who did the soundtrack, kind of comments how it's practically a silent film, and it really is. There's not a lot of dialogue. Similar to Drive, even less dialogue than Drive. So if you thought Drive was like this slow, quiet, borderline mumblecore film, this is absolutely a silent film for you. And but I love the setting. It's almost very dreamlike. It feels like you're not quite there or here, but you are. And I like the way it comes together, but the way the ending happens is, to me, just absolutely perfect. It cuts to a karaoke scene after something that's kind of wild and important, I think, and it always hit me and resonated with me. So now I kind of have this thing now where if a movie should ever end with a karaoke scene, there is even a good, like, almost cheesy karaoke scene that kind of gets to my heart in a way. I know that sounds stupid, but I really like this movie. I don't think I can recommend it to very many people, actually, because if you're a fan of NWR, you're probably going to see it, and you probably should. In his interviews, he actually kind of talks about how this was influenced by Argento's work and a lot of that type of stuff, and you can kind of see it with all the lush colors, especially if comparing it to something like Suspiria or something, where this movie just bleeds color, and it's kind of gorgeous. I'm surprised more people don't talk that part up, because I think you could put this on at a party and cut the sound, and you would really have people's attention, I think. But I'm a fan. I'm a big fan, and I understand if you're not. But I feel like, I did not touch on the documentary. So if you're wondering, like, I wonder what Nicholas Winding Refn, NWR, went through while making this film. Well, there is a film called My Life, directed by Nicholas Winding Refn. That's the whole title. He didn't direct it. His wife did. His wife pretty much directs his whole journey during production to after the release. And it's kind of cool to watch him go from being kind of excited to not really, and then being like, oh man, I made a piece of trash. He's hanging out with Alejandro Jodorowsky. Jodorowsky's reading his tarot. That's why Jodorowsky has a special thanks credit in the film, along with Oh, what's his name? Oh, hold on. I need to reference this really quick. I need to cross-check my references here. There were like two people who got... Is it Von Trier? Did Von Trier get a special thanks on here? I always get him mixed up with the other guy who does gross movies. Gaspar Noé. Gaspar Noé was on set during the making of some of this, and he also had a special thanks in the credits. I think that's kind of interesting. But what's interesting to note, this is actually from Wikipedia, but he does talk about it a little bit in the film's interviews. He said that from the beginning he had the idea of a thriller, produced as a Western all in the Far East, and with a modern cowboy hero. So initially, instead of Drive, Only God Forgives was supposed to have been made, and Gosling really wanted him to do Drive, so he did Drive. You got to listen to the Goss when the Goss speaks, you know. I thought that was interesting too, because Cliff Martinez talks about how originally Refn wanted country songs to be on the soundtrack, which probably would have come off a little hokey. I don't feel like this is as much of a Western tale as something like Drive. I think Drive is actually much closer to a Western than people might realize, or at least in my opinion anyway. I want to do this show with a buddy where we talk about films and if they're Westerns or not. And one of the first episodes I want to do is Drive, because I kind of think Drive is a Western. If you replaced the cars with horses, you'd have a Western. I don't know. Makes sense to me. Let me know what you think, I guess, right? Jeez. I don't know, guys. Anyway, that documentary is totally worth checking out, though. I mentioned in the Shirkers episode how I kind of like failed film documentaries, and I think in a way that would count. I mean, Only God Forgives definitely didn't succeed. It succeeded to a very small group of people, and for that I think it's interesting. And I think it's a cool film, though. If you're okay with just watching something for aesthetic pleasure, maybe relax. I don't know. Smoke the 420, you know? That might be your movie. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. I mentioned this before. I love the soundtrack. I love the ending song. I've listened to it a billion times. It's one of my favorite songs used in the film now. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Only God Forgives. Nicholas Winding Refn. And you can holler at me on Twitter. Full Custom Hot Dog without the last O, because that is just too long for Twitter. So, until next time.